So, welcome everybody to the latest Greyhound Style Zoom meeting. Tonight, I thought the subject that we would tackle would be TV racing. Seems quite relevant at the moment, given that we've just had Sky Racing join the ranks. RPGTV have just upgraded to HD, and maybe it's a time for a look at the whole scene. How are they doing? What do we think? Do we think we can make any improvements? As you can possibly see on screen, joined by three well-known owners in the industry, Billy Boyle, David Mitchell, and Mark Burridge. So, gentlemen, I came up with a couple of statements to sort of throw out there to kick this thing off, and I should just check to a couple of my notes here. In terms of greyhound betting, I throw it out there that there is a bit of a disconnect between what the betting shop hierarchy think that the punter wants and what we may think different. In other words, does the betting shop punter aspire to nothing beyond sort of two flies up a wall, bet on anything that goes? I would argue that's even more relevant to online betting and obviously televised betting, which is practically the same thing. And does that present opportunities? How do we see it going? Who fancies first crack at it?
I don't mind going, Floyd. Yeah, I think the sport is now seen as a sport probably by a minority, which is sad to say, but I think it's probably quite fair. I think the sport has changed over the years somewhat due to it changing towards the bookmakers model. That's happened over the period of time. I think having this greyhound racing back on TV gives us a great platform to bring that fun element back into it and that excitement back into it. I mean, it's just not it's just not a sport now that exists just the betting commodity. It has to still exist as that hobby. You're not just getting punters that are watching a show. I accept it does have to exist as a betting platform, but there is so much more now we can bring to the table. I think we need to market our product now as a sport and not so much as an industry. What got us into the game and into the sport was we actually went and watched racing. So again, people can see that it is going to be on primarily a sport platform, so it's going to be hard to reach other people. But again, it will be outside of ground racing, and I think we need to promote the stars as individuals and not just market it as a bingo and as a numbers game.
Makes a lot of sense. Mark, is that achievable? I mean, at the end of the day, as Billy quite rightly pointed out, it is betting led. Is it feasible to have something that's both?
I mean, what we've seen over the years is when I first went greyhound racing, it was busy every night. It's now just become the weekends. We're down to 18 tracks, so you're not likely to have one on your doorstep unless you're really lucky. I think if you're a greyhound owner, there's nothing like going to watch your dogs run and enjoy the evening. Some of you want to eat inside. Sometimes just want a beer downstairs with your mates, whatever. To me, and I'm sure Billy and David feel the same, and thousands of other owners out there, there's nothing like actually being at the track. Yes, you can watch it on your phone. Yes, you can watch it on your computer, and everybody's having to do that at the moment anyway. But once things are open up again, there's nothing like being there. Yes, we have seen this model, which I'm not sure if it was meant to come in, but it's just a diet of numbers. The quality of races isn't necessarily the quality. I think we've still got reasonable sponsorship in this with the climate at the moment in some of the big races. It's very, very important. We cannot lose open racing at all. That's imperative, because then your siphons down to getting the breeders don't get involved, and that would be the end of the industry. So we've got to have that high quality racing, and that's of course that's what the diehards like Billy, David, and all the others really want to watch. It is the open racing, with no due disrespect to the connections, the dogs themselves. Not everybody wants to, watch a handicap sprint from somewhere. Others, they won't worry. It's balancing that audience. Sport everywhere is difficult at the moment. Everybody's having to watch things on a computer. But when we get back to it, the sport really needs to drive and get people back into the game. Whether it can be achieved, it comes back again to trying to get the youngsters in. It's appealing to that younger audience, and that's why I've always been very keen on trying to promote the youngsters who are coming through, who are keen, because they're the ones who the younger generation are going to follow, not us, older owners.
Yeah, this is a natural thing for me to get to switch to Mitch, because apart from the fact that he's a bit younger than the rest of us, if we look to the Australian model, they do manage to achieve both. They do manage to achieve huge volumes of turnover, but at the same time, as we've all seen from their media, they also do it in a very sexy way. The way they present their greyhounds. Any views on that, Dave?
Yeah, I think Australia kind of covered all bases. They've understood the product and they've understood how to get in front of people from different demographics, whether you're young or whether you're old. It appeases to everybody. I think just going to the obviously the ARC tracks now on Sky Sports, Sky Sports Racing. I think ARC tracks have got a great opportunity now. There's a chance there to bring in a different demographic. There's also an opportunity to attract sponsors. You've got that platform, which is slightly different to RPGTV. Perhaps RPGTV will be more your diehard fans, like myself and the others on this call, who would want to go and watch their dog race. But I think that on Sky Sports Racing, depending how they market the product, is there opportunities there for sponsorship to bring more money into the sport to get it to the grassroots levels.
Yeah, I watched it last night for the first time. Two or three things occurred to me, and because I actually contrasted between the two, flipped between one channel and another. In terms of RPG TV, I don't know how you guys felt. Although they had the HD, it wasn't strikingly different. Yes, the quality of the pictures was better, but I didn't think it was going to blow. I expected to blow my socks off and go, "Oh my God, this looks brilliant." It was definitely better, but I don't think it was brilliant. Funnily enough, I thought the Sky pictures looked so much more impressive. I was impressed. I liked the commentary from Newcastle. I thought it was very, very good. I could listen to Darryl Williams all day in any case. I guess my only criticism would be that they do seem to be struggling with their format. Are they simply going to cram the odd dog race in between American horse racing, which, to be honest, I could go the rest of my life and not watch another horse race of any type, but certainly American racing with, you dashing from one meeting to another. You've got no chance to learn anything about the horses unless presumably you've done your swatting up before the meeting. That was, my personal view is that if they're going to make greyhound racing work, then they have to give us more to engage us and to engage the viewer. How does anybody else feel about that?
Yeah, very, very much so, Floyd. I think one of the things I think we enjoy about RPG TV, if they are covering, your dog is running, there is a build up to it. It's not just, you can watch from the start of the show. I think you're far more likely to be engaged for the whole show building up to your race. It's not quite like being there, as we said, but it's not bad. There is a bonus to having your track on there if your dog is running. I've watched racing from Harlow the other night. Like you, I thought the picture was better. The format is still very, very much the same. I wonder if they're going to have a look at completely changing that. How they would do that, I don't know. But the Sky racing, if you're just putting dog races in between, even though high quality pictures, and you've got great commentators like Darryl, who agree with you, he's terrific, he's a real pro. It just sort of cheapens the sport. It's great to get the viewing on there. but it cheapens what it's all about. You know, it's just like fitting in a greyhound race here and there, no build up to it. Then you come back to the numbers game, don't you? It feels like casino dogs.
Yeah, the question I would have is, does that pay for doing? I mean, would it be a better commercial model, Billy? What do you think? A better commercial model to engage people and talk to them about the race, rather than just keep flashing races in front of them and expect maybe they'll have a bet?
But for me, um, I want to see a build up. I want to see race analysis. I want to see interviews. I want to see previous videos. I want to see head-on shots. I want to see drone shots. I want to see everything. I want to tune in to watch the whole package. I don't want to tune in like a bet shop punter just to watch a particular race. We can all do that on our phones from the bookies feeds, and they are convenient. But if I'm going to sit indoors on Sky to actually watch a racing card, I want to view the whole lot, and I want to be engaged and interested. Fitting a race in and around American racing for me doesn't work for a greyhound enthusiast. We need to know our worth, and how about fitting these American races in around our races, albeit it won't happen. I think we've always been marketed this way on a Saturday morning, just fit quick racing in between horse racing, in between before football matches for people for a quick bet. And we kind of lost our identity as a sport and gone down the lines as an industry, obviously against that bookmakers model. It's kept us in business, but I'm not sure it is sustainable. We are losing owners who are the enthusiasts. Out of all of this, I think there's actually quite a lot of people that are quite pleased, and for me, the only ones that are sitting there and not so impressed will probably be the open class owners and the trainers of the open class dogs. Everyone else seems to be quite happy that we're on the TV. Trainers have got okay contracts, I'm led to believe. So other than owners of the open race dogs and a few trainers, everyone seems to be sitting quite happy in how things are going.
Yeah, I mean, I think we had a quick chat before we started recording, but I mean, the one argument, I think, if Clive Lawrence was on here from RPGTV, he would go, yeah, well, we'd love all that if we had the money to do it. We're trying to produce a program 7 days a week on quite a small budget. We bought you HD. Is it possible? I'll perhaps throw this over to Mitch. If you are presenting, I don't know, Harlow and or Henlow or any of the tracks, I'm not looking to particularly pick on one of the broadcasters. How do you keep that interesting when we know, as I said, you can't have top class racing for every race?
You have to tell the story, whether it's graded racing or whether it's open racing. You have to tell a story about the dogs, and we don't do that, and that's what they do in Australia. They do it really well. You can watch a race in Australia, and every race looks like it's a Group 1, but it doesn't. It's the way they present it, the way they tell the stories. I can remember speaking to Mick Floyd about this and saying, how do you engage people with, say, a Melbourne Cup final compared to just a normal standard race? And he said, well, there's 8 dogs in a race and there's 8 stories to tell. It's how you tell those stories. And I think that's what Billy's touching on, that they need we need it to be treated well. We need to be treated right. It's not just an infill for American horse racing. We can tell so many stories about these dogs and the owners and the trainers that will engage owners and trainers to want to stay in the sport, but also it'll bring people in. And I've also mentioned about sponsors, but that's the one thing that we don't do very well. And you hear all the time about it. Not, we haven't got a lot of money. We haven't got this. Australia have got that. Australia just go that little bit further to do things a little bit better than us that don't cost a lot of money. They just generally invest more time into doing it. And that comes back to treating the sport that it's not just a betting product, it's a sport at the end of the day. Any other sport you watch, whether it's football on Sky Sports or whatever it might be, it gets treated in the right way, whereas greyhound racing a lot of the time just doesn't get treated like that.
Yeah, I wanted to flash up, if I can, the latest schedule, which hopefully you should be able to see in a second. Let's see. Okay, can we see that? And here we're looking at the schedule as it stands at the moment. And it seems to me that we've perhaps got strengths and weaknesses on different days for both of the services. Anything in capitals is an open race card, a potential open race card for next week. Now, I realise this will vary a little bit. So, I mean, we have a peculiar one, for example, on Thursday, where Sky Racing will be showing Newcastle, but they have open races from Perry Bar. A little bit of a conflict there, really. That, you know, which matters the most. As a purist, we'd probably say give us the open racing. On the other hand, the producers of the show may say, well, Newcastle visually looks more interesting for the viewer. Again, you know, different nights. I don't think anybody could argue that the forthcoming Saturday on RPGTV with Monmore in the evening, I mean Crayford at lunchtime, of course, and then Shelbourne Park in the evening. I mean, by any standard, that is decent racing. Can we, going back a little bit to something I said earlier, can we make Doncaster and Harlow on a Wednesday as sexy as, I don't know, Nottingham on a Monday night from Sky Racing? Anybody?
I think you'll obviously find it difficult in certain circumstances. You will find it difficult, and it's never going to be easy to try and, you know, make these graded cards seem bigger. But what happened to owners bonus series and things like that we could build up? What about you know, we've got Gerwin Price, we've got these famous people within the sport now. What about getting them involved in some way to try and, even if it's midweek, just Gerwin Price is on Sky Sports Racing and you know, covering the dogs. So could we do that? Could we do something like that?
Yeah, definitely. Mark, your thoughts?
I think Billy's got the connection there, haven't you, Billy? to Gerwin Price. It is, yeah. We you know, people who are in the, and he's a number one, isn't he, at the moment? It's all good news for the sport. To be honest, you know, you mentioned the card there. As a purist, and that doesn't in any way want to sound disrespectful to the others, but I wouldn't really be wanting to watch racing from those shows. It's lower grade rate. To me, that is numbers racing, you know, and the industry does have a lot of trainers owning dogs at the moment, you know, where you don't have the owners involved so much, who might not be quite so bothered about, you know, watching the dogs in the week. Well, I have to say, I think RPGTV over the years have done a fantastic job. But you have to remember that even on Derby night, when you would hope the whole programme will be exclusively devoted to the Derby with the interviews and the build-up, they still have to have a graded card in there because that is the bookmaker's interest. That is just the way it is. They do a fantastic job on a small budget, and I think the double headers they had last year were hugely entertaining at certain tracks. And the sport has done itself proud, I think, in the pandemic. But when we come out of it and look to grow, you know, we've got to start selling the sport the same way as Australia does, which I know David has been very, very much to the forefront in trying to bring that to everyone's mind. You know, Andy Pelly and Neil Price follow Australia a lot and do a lot on social media about it. And we can only marvel. But is that, David, just all down to the different system with the tab over there?
I mean, this conversation wasn't about breaking all this down, but it is to do with the tab and it's to do with the funding model as well. But in terms of what the likes of Mick Floyd at Sandown and others do, they don't do it at a lot of cost. It doesn't cost a lot of money to put that extra effort in to go on social media. You know, I mean, overnight, I've seen videos of them where they just did a slow motion video of a dog finishing the race with the trainer smiling, going back to the kennels, having a drink of water, that type of thing just engages people. It's just using your head like Josh Seeley does and says, you know what, I'll get a £25 drone or whatever it might be, throw a drone in the air, or just to give that little bit something extra that just grabs people's attentions and just says, well, this is a bit more professional. This isn't just about race after race after race after race, you know. It's just about going that little bit further. And this whole idea about funding, and we haven't got a lot of it in the UK, which you haven't, but that's a separate conversation with how the funding then goes back down to the grassroots, which it's not at the moment. Um, it's just about giving a bit more care and attention, you know. Just quickly touching on one thing there, talking about Roxon Christoph coming up against Iamza Royale.
Yeah.
And in the semi-final was absolutely phenomenal. The two best dogs, you know, arguably in Europe, going nose to nose. It was unbelievable. Now, some will have seen my social media post at the time saying, why are we not building this up? It's there on a plate. Why are we not screaming from the rooftop? Look at these two dogs. Anybody that watched them two dogs would have seen something like Denman versus Kato Star or Frankel v Camford Cliffs. We never did anything really. We built the final up a little bit, but we didn't go to the extreme that we could have, and it's just missed opportunities for me.
Yeah,
Do you know?
to be honest, I mean, I watched last night, as I said, flick between the channels, and I'm genuinely not trying to have a pop here because I think RPGTV at its best is very good, delivers high quality racing, you know, at quite a reasonable price. But last night I thought to myself, God, this is just so sort of bland. You know, some letters in from some of the readers, which always start off, you know, great show again tonight, guys, and then some kind of piffle. And I thought to myself, what am I doing sitting here? I could be watching football, I could be watching all kinds of other things. This does not engage me in the slightest. And unless I'm a betting fanatic that needs to back anything just to keep my motivation going, why on earth am I watching this? And is that, as you know, I think you put the thing on it yourself, is that really down to just needing a little bit of a kick up the arse and people saying, well, we can do better with what we've got. It just seemed very, very uninspired. And as I said, I know people will take having a pop at RPG TV. I'm just being completely honest about it. I just thought it was really quite poor. And it isn't always quite poor. I take Mark's point on board. You know, quite often it's been very, very good. They've engaged, they've got things involved. Sometimes they just seem to go through the motion. And I would say, despite the shambles of a kind of a schedule that Sky Racing still don't have, because they've only been going a couple of days, I thought it was visually better than RPG TV last night. But Billy, do you have any view?
Yeah, I've got to be totally honest as well, Floyd. You know, quite lately, me and a few of the others, I'm finding it quite difficult. I'm finding it a difficult watch, other than the actual racing itself. The show doesn't seem to have evolved an awful lot. It has been wonderful over the years, and it still is, and it's badly needed, but it hasn't evolved. We're still getting similar guests, the presenters the same. There's a real lack of energy for me, a real lack of emotion. And outside of the racing itself, I'm finding it quite difficult. I won't tune in to, you know, to cards that I don't want to watch. So it's not the actual show that I'm watching. You've seen, you know, we've all seen what Barry Hearn's done for the snooker and for the darts. You know, we do need to sexy it up. Yeah, our budgets are not the same, but how else do you entice people into watching? You're gonna get the enthusiasts to watch, but even those are finding it difficult. We can all stream races now, you know, on our phones and tablets. Do we need to watch a show that's given us, you know, no real build up? You're getting the odd emails from, you know, I'm not going to say names, but the same people talking about non-greyhound stuff. Presenters, you know, again, talking about non-greyhound stuff. I'm finding it, recently quite difficult, but, we do need the show. It has been fabulous over the years. And there is a massive, massive opportunity here for, to step their game up. Let's make it, a bigger show, a package. We got, all this racing now on TV. I'm even seeing racing and SIS abroad, but let's make no mistake, all this racing that's going on now, let's please ensure that these tracks, this money is passed down to the tracks, and this prize money, is going in the wrong direction. It has to go the other way now. So whilst it is good, we do need to accept, that money needs to come back in some form to these grassroots tracks, so we can, give everything an uplift.
Definitely so. And I think before we conclude, because I don't want this to drag on for too long, we're trying to keep these things reasonably sensible. Is there any other points that anybody feels that they would like to bring up in terms of anything that we may have missed?
Yeah, Floyd, talking about how are we going to grow the sport, I come back to the younger people. You've all seen the racing blogger, whether you like him or loathe him. He's got a very, very big following, and he engages people, and retweets happen, and that grows the sport. We could do with someone like that. We could do with, a few years ago, I was saying to people, what is a YouTuber? We need a young YouTuber who's got an interest in maybe greyhounds, builds up, has, maybe gets involved in owning a dog, and it's all about their visit to the track and so on, and a day down at the kennel. That's how the sport will grow. That is the only way things grow now. Most of it seems to be on social media, because it's a cheaper way than mainstream television.
Yeah, I guess though we are still back to the discussion that says, well, really, it isn't the grand industry that's funding the program. It is bookmakers, and they're probably getting what they want. I was looking at some figures earlier because I couldn't remember. I've covered various things on the website about levels of gambling and how it varies, and I think it works out roughly in terms of income or income, gross yield. I think it's something like £9. £9 to one is still in favour of the betting shops in terms of how the kind of money that the bookmakers make, and they can put the bland stuff on in the betting shops, as we all know. And I guess there are accountants sitting in the major firms saying, well, that is still where we make most of our money. Why do we need to change? We will find enough mugs that will go on in the evening and watch bland racing, and until that level grows. I mean, I saw that the amount of, I've just got the figures here somewhere. I think it was something like 27% increase in online betting on greyhounds last year, according to the Gambling Commission's own website. So perhaps if that continues to grow and that 9 to 1 comes down to, I don't know, 5 to 1 or less, overall, interestingly enough, the amount of money bet online compared to in the betting shops is virtually identical now. I think it's something like 2.4 billion against 2.3 billion. So perhaps in the longer term, we have an opportunity where it will matter with the quality of racing, because if you're going to engage more people, maybe at that point that the bookmakers do say, well, we want the better racing on. We're not just going to be putting on more bags racing,
It's funny you should say that, Floyd, because I know that, I mean, I keep going back to Australia because we have to try and compare and improve, and Australia is the benchmark for me. Australia, in New South Wales, I think it was, released figures to say that over the last 3 months where they've had competitions on, their betting turnover has they've broken records. So clearly in Australia, people are willing to bet more on the better racing, for the better shows, for these nights where it's on TV and all the bells and whistles. So you wouldn't want to see the sport just infilling and just dragging through the betting shop and it's just race after race after race. I just want to touch on the other thing that Billy said about the funding getting to the grassroots. That is the most important thing at the moment, and I mentioned it on Twitter the other day, and you've got a much bigger following with the Star, and it needs out there that these SIS and ARC and whatnot, we're streaming globally now, You know, you can sit in your living room in Australia and watch a race from Newcastle or anywhere like that. That the money needs to start getting down to the grassroots. You know, you've got kennel hands, trainers. We're not making enough money at the grassroots. I seen a tweet yesterday, an owner saying that he had 2 winners and a third, and he still had a kennel bill at the end of the month. It's not good enough. The funding needs increased at a grassroots level. Wherever the funding is, whether it's with the bookmakers or whether it's with the media partners, it needs to be getting to the grassroots, and it needs to be getting to the grassroots quick before people start leaving the sport.
Definitely so. Gentlemen, before we flog it to death, I think we'll leave it there. Thank you very much for joining us. I think it was a really interesting
Can I
point.
just stick one last point in, Floyd? I'll
Yes,
be
of
quick.
course.
Yeah, just something that I think is worth mentioning is whilst we've got this great racing probably on Crayford Saturday morning, Romford Friday night, and I'm sure it generates a lot more turnover, engagement. I think there's a big issue now with with greyhound punters is where their accounts are restricted, and it seems to be over the last few years it's been a big issue where I don't know whether the book is to protect greyhound punters. And I think they've been driven to the exchanges, and I feel that's a real problem in why a lot of this my finance is not getting back to the tracks and back into the sport. It seems like nobody wants to address this issue or even talk about this issue, but I feel it's a big issue. Looking at some of the turnover on some of these races is astronomical on Betfair, but we all know that funding is not filtered its way back in. And I just thought it was a point worth raising. That was all.
Billy, absolutely is, and in fact, I think it will be leading to something that I intend to cover next week, which for various reasons I don't want to go into now. But I think you're absolutely spot on. In fact, I was reading, there was a very interesting article I was reading quite recently about Bet365, and I think it caused some controversy. It was quite an old article, came out in the Daily Mail. And I believe that they were one of the first companies to use algorithms to control their clients' accounts. And, you know, in the old days, we all remember if you could go on a bit of a run before a bookie finally kind of grabbed hold of you and go, I'm sorry, you're a bit too much of a shrewdie. Now, and I'm convinced, I'm certain that Bet365 aren't the only ones. It is all controlled electronically. They don't even need a guy in an office now to go, well, Billy Ball's on a good run, we need to cut him down. It is done automatically, and that's not going to change. We've got a talk. We have to have a discussion next week. As I said, for various reasons, next week will be more appropriate than this week, about industry returns averaging 128 to 130% on graded racing, which I would use a particular word for what it's doing, but I don't think it'd be appropriate. So yeah, take that on board, and hopefully we'll have some interesting guests to discuss it next week. Maybe some of you too. So some of you too. That sounds good. It sounds as though you weren't. Gentlemen, sorry. Lovely. Well, thank you for your time. We'll kick off, and hopefully we'll get you back another day.
Thanks, Floyd.
Cheers. Thank you.
Cheers, guys. Thank you.
Cheers, guys.
Bye.